Good morning, grand rising to all of you out there. Happy Monday to you. As you can see, we've got a brand new studio set up, and I'm so excited to be with my buddy and my co-host, Big O. What's up, Big O?
Trey Holiday. What's up?
What's going on, man? Happy Monday, my friend.
Man, I'm just glad a little bit of yellow is matching up. I mean, it never has coordination meant so much. Goodness gracious.
I know it's time to step your game up, oh.
Clearly, I see. You know, well, at least this one, though, I can wear shorts.
There you go. Yeah, see, he's excited.
And I'm all good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Had a great weekend. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting.
Okay.
It was interesting. Hey, I gotta well, first of all, so we gotta figure this out in a brand new way here. How do we do this here? All right. So now let me rotate this way, and now I go there. First of all, I want to say thank you and good morning to everybody tuning in. I want to also say thank you for your support, and this is the perfect opportunity to tag and share the stream. Share the stream with someone that you know could appreciate culturally relevant news, information, and headlines emanating from here in the Emerald City. Now, all that being said, again, how are you, Trey Holiday?
You know what? I'm great, man. I'm loving this new studio setup. I just want to send a shout out to our Converge team and director, Mrs. Aya Di Alessandro. I love how we say her name. For working really hard to get a new configuration in the studio, man.
Di Alessandro.
Di Alessandro. Yes.
Oh, man. Okay, so listen. This isn't part of the show program. Usually we got some real nice graphics and everything in here, but this is important information. So I'm gonna just kind of put it together as I see it here. I got an email from Kelsey Nyland downtown. She used to be in the mayor's office. Then she still might be. Said, I want to let you know there are several hundred remaining COVID-19 vaccination appointments from March 8th to March 13th at Community Testing and Vaccination Hub in Rainier Beach. In South Seattle, residents who are 65 and older can sign up immediately by filling out this form. So let me go and find a little comment section here. I'm putting the link in the comments right now. Again, this was an email over from Kelsey Nyland in the mayor's office. I want to let you know there are several hundred remaining COVID-19 vaccination appointments from March 8th to March 13th at Community Testing and Vaccination Hub in Rainier Beach. Residents who are 65 and older can sign up immediately by filling out this form. And I put the form there in the comments. So good, timely information. One of the reasons why we started this show is to get COVID information out to the community.
Yeah.
And so good looking out, Kelsey. She actually sent me that last night. She was like, I'm sorry to send this to you on a Sunday. I said, man, vaccines for our elders, send it anytime.
There we go. There we go. And it is important. I mean, there's been a lot of great work being done with collaborations, you know, community groups working with these vaccine hubs, as, you know, we're kind of knowing them. And it's great to know that there's more and more vaccinations coming out for our public. Amazing.
All right. So, man, we got a few national headlines, some local stuff here today. We're also looking at SVI up there, Seattle Vocational Institute in the Central District. But it started off yesterday was the 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. And here's a look back.
President Biden is set to sign an executive order aimed at leveraging federal resources to expand access to voting. It comes on the 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, when 600 peaceful protesters marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. They were led by the late Congressman John Lewis, urging for the passage of the Voting Rights Act before being met with violence from white police officers. The president this morning noting now, even half a century later, despite all the progress made, the fight for voting rights for all Americans is still an ongoing battle.
The legacy of the March in Selma is that while nothing can stop free people from exercising their most sacred power as a citizen, there are those who will do anything they can to take that power away.
Yeah, there's people who've always been doing what they can to take that power away.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, we were just talking about this, and we see these new regulations coming out right now. We saw it. We reported on it last week, but here we go. There's still voter suppression happening to this day. Right there, people, marching for their rights. And unfortunately, there's still some rights that they try to keep away from us. Man, they really don't want us all to vote.
man, it was crazy because looking at that a year ago, when we aired a similar segment in looking at the Edmund Pettus Bridge and how the Alabama State Troopers met those peaceful protesters right there on that bridge. It's crazy because a year later, I don't know, you're in here, Jake, you were there. It's like you can't help, if you're a Seattle person, you're in the protest, look at the Western Barricade. You know what I'm saying? To where protesters were just met with like overwhelming force. Now, of course, I'm not trying to say that the protests here in Seattle was on the same scale as what occurred there in Selma, Alabama on Bloody Sunday, but it hits you different going through the Seattle protests and the interaction with the Seattle Police Department, and man, and a lot of times force that was totally excessive.
Yeah, I mean, literally, you're absolutely right. Oh, and this is really why, people are saying we still got to be out here in the streets. I mean, clearly, there's still things that people are fighting for to this day. And ultimately, it goes down to people utilizing their actual rights. As the president just said there, it is a First Amendment right to be able to gather, get out in the streets, and really utilize our voices. And ultimately, we see people are still needing to do it right now. And clearly, that Western Barricade was another example of how things are playing out right now in our present time.
Yeah, and when you talk about I think there's 33 states in America where there's different kinds of legislation trying to suppress the vote one way or another. It's a game that's been played from day one, and I think that people are lying to themselves when they think about all these days of free and fair of this. It's never been free or fair for us. And, for us as a country to really get things on the right track, we just need to be honest that it's never been free or fair. And these days, people are just, they're just formalizing suppression. I always said 100 years ago, even 50, 60 years ago, people would just be out there at the poll with a shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can't really show up with the shotgun and intimidate like you could before, but now you just use legislation. Same thing.
Same thing.
Moving on here, what else do we have here? This was interesting, especially though yesterday. This is Women's Month, and yesterday was International Women's Day, and this came out over the weekend. Amanda Gorman. Some of you guys might remember Amanda Gorman. She was the whole country fell in love with Amanda Gorman when she gave presented her poem at the inauguration and also at the Super Bowl. Well, it turns out that once again, we always find out that at the end of the day, we still Black.
Poet Amanda Gorman, who gained nationwide fame after speaking at President Biden's inauguration, says she was racially profiled outside of her apartment Friday night. Gorman took to Twitter to share that a security guard tailed her on her walk home. She said, quote, "He demanded if I lived there because you look suspicious." She then showed her keys and buzzed into the building, and he left her alone. The 23-year-old, who read a powerful rendition of her poem, "The Hill We Climb," at the president's inauguration, said in the Post, "This is the reality of Black girls. One day you're called an icon, the next day a threat." Someone with such a powerful voice using it yet again.
There we go. I mean, we talk about this all the time. We don't get the opportunity to change our skin color. And ultimately, that's why Black liberation movements ultimately are always bringing together those who are Black. Doesn't matter what you gender as, who you sleep with. None of that stuff matters. At the end of the day, the idea is that what somebody is going to see first and foremost is your skin color, period, point blank. They didn't recognize that was Amanda Gorman, who literally months ago, just a couple of months now, was at the inauguration giving a powerful poem, again, combining all of her lived experience as a 23-year-old Black woman and bringing that into her poem, which really resonated with so many of us right here in this country. At the end of the day, she is absolutely right. None of that stuff really matters because what they see is they see Black, and sometimes they just see threats.
Yeah, and what's crazy is it's every day. The same was a big weekend for myself, Converge. I think it was November, December last year. I was I was honored as a hometown hero there with Mohai. Ryan over at Channel 4, they had done a 1-hour special interview, turned out real nice. There was something on KUOW, so it was crazy, you know. And I mean, people might think I'm a whatever. I'm really like an introvert. I'm a shy person, so all this stuff being on the news and everything else, I was like, whoa. So I'm, you know, I like to go in my shell and kind of chill, and it was crazy. That same weekend, where the Museum of History and Industry was sitting here calling me and Converge Media heroes and assets to the city. Man, these white people ain't want to let me in my building. It was like, man, do you live here? Are you Uber Eats? Are you this and that? Because I left a little fob thing upstairs, so I was calling my phone to be able to buzz myself in. And that's just really the reality of it. You know what I'm saying? You could really be a hometown hero. You could really give the inauguration, you know, a poem at the inauguration. At the end of the day, people see your color. My ex used to live up there at the Pratt building. You know what I'm saying? On 18th and Jackson, the Edwin T. Pratt building, named after Edwin T. Pratt, you know, a civil rights assassination. Go over there, they'd be like, yeah, are you DoorDash? Right. What are you doing in the building? I'm like, this is a building named after a Black civil rights icon.
You know, this is the at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much money you make. I've talked to a person who earns way over 6 figures, right? And lives in a building down in South Lake Union. And the same thing was happening to her and her boyfriend. And literally being one of the only Black couples in the building, they would be looked at with smirks and scowls when they were in the elevator. I mean, literally, this is the kind of stuff that we deal with as Black people. And again, this is why at the end of the day, there is always going to be something to be said for this system that's kind of created, because the ideas of racism and these ideologies that are so detrimental to so many in the Black community, they are still alive and well, and they persist all throughout time. It doesn't matter if you make enough money to live in the building or anything. Unfortunately, they're still looking at you as a Black person that doesn't belong. And that's really what it is. They create a lot of these spaces so that they make it really hard for Black people to get there. And even when you do, they're still looking at you like you don't belong. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's crazy. And I'm definitely not on the scale of an Amanda Gorman, but the fact that, like, here, and I bet you there's hella Black people who tell you that. You go into your own building. People, who are you? You know, dude was like, man, well, I'm gonna call the police. I was like, aha, in this city, my friend, please do. I said, I'm sure they know me. They know me before they know you. Please call 911. Have them come here, man. But you know, it's like I said, you can change legislation, but you can't change people's heart conditions.
That's right.
And it will be interesting. There's all these laws and things that are passing, but you know what I'm saying? You can't change. People have to want to change themselves and their view and their outlook on things. Speaking of change, we're definitely changing mayors. With Mayor Durkin saying that she's not gonna, hold on, I gotta orientate myself here. Where am I going? There I am. Hello. With Mayor Durkin saying she's not gonna run for re-election, then the field continues to open up. And last week, James Donaldson, former Seattle Supersonic, said he's running for mayor.
A former player with the Seattle Supersonics is hoping to go from hoops to City Hall.
So today, James Donaldson announced his campaign for Seattle mayor. The 7'2" center played 3 seasons for the Sonics in the early 1980s and 11 seasons in the NBA. After retiring, he settled right here in Seattle and started a physical therapy business. This isn't his first campaign for mayor, by the way. He ran back in 2009 and finished 4th in that race. He says it's time for an end of the status quo here in Seattle.
I can't sit idly by and let the same old continue to take us down this path that we're going by. We can do so much better. We've been so much better. I've been here for 40 years.
Hey, he's got a lot of history in the city. Donaldson is hoping to replace Jenny Durkin, who announced she will not seek a second term this fall. The field also includes City Council President Lorena Gonzalez, Chief Seattle Club Executive Colleen Echohawk, and Lance Randall with the nonprofit Seed.
All right, so missing from there, though, was Ace Houston, who actually made an announcement right here on the Morning Update show. But I will say this, Treyana, is that, man, the Soul Patrol seems to be represented now in the mayor's race. You have Ace, you have Lance Randall and James Donaldson. I think that the last time black people might have been like, yeah, this time they coming. And man, rumors, I don't know, we don't want to go up. The streets is talking. Bruce Harrell might jump in there. The Soul Patrol might be thick.
And you know what? At the end of the day, I love what he said there. You know, no longer can folks sit by and actually deal with the status quo that the city has been producing. I think it is so right. And I'm really happy to see a really strong race with people that are coming from the global majority to be leading this city. It is going to require a different outlook. It's going to require people who don't have the same kind of maybe corporate ties or ties to certain things that we've seen play out not so well in the Black community. So honestly, again, you know, as we said, even with the presidential campaign, we said, look, you got to make sure that you have an actual agenda for the Black community. As Omari said here, like last week, you know, don't come over here with the BIPOC stuff, man. Have a plan for what you're going to do for the Black community. That's really important, man. I hope all these guys have it.
And you know, actually, that presents an opportunity to speak about that here for a minute. So, and a few things, Peggy put it in there so I can get it correct. Andrew Grant Houston.
There we go.
But he did say call him Ace.
Yeah, he did.
So Ace is also in the race. It also represents a wide diversity of Black voices talking about running for mayor, where you've got James Donaldson, a former NBA player and entrepreneur. You've got Ace, who's big in environment, sustainability, architecture. You have Lance Randall, big on business background, and same with Harrell. And Harrell brings past experience from being on the council. So, as they like to say, Black community is not a monolith. This is definitely a wide variety here of Black candidates that so far are running for mayor. Harrell has not said that he's running. It's just speculation that's out there that he might. I wanted to bring something up, though, Trey, is that when we're talking about BIPOC, Black, this and that, everything else, right? So kind of clarify. It looks like we got choppy. Good.
Keep going.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, what they're saying though is, so when you talk about BIPOC, right, and the word BIPOC, and then resources for the Black community, yeah. Ah, that's what you need. Okay, resources for the Black community, and the pushback that we always get from people who work in government is that it's illegal, this I-200 and all these other things, to specifically earmark dollars for Black people. And then they're able to say BIPOC because, using the term BIPOC is able to give some cover or something like that, right? But that's when it's associated to money, to dollars, right? There's nothing wrong with saying that in the Black community, you want to be intentional in listening. You want to be intentional in understanding. You want to be intentional in building relationships in specifically Black community. It's only when there's a tie to dollars to when you talk about something that is maybe legalities of saying, I'm going to do this specifically for Black community, but you can do all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I think even, there's some room there to really dissect what that law is about and why it is actually in place. I think that that's something that I know a lot of people on the ground may not understand wholeheartedly. Then even myself, talking about myself, I have questions about that. But ultimately, I think you're right. When we're talking about a plan here, we're actually talking about a lot of different things that can be done that are specific to addressing the needs that are in Black community. They are out there. There's a lot of data out there saying this. It's time to address those needs, man, head on.
All right. We're going to take a quick break right now. Looks like I need to calibrate something. When we come back, this discussion continues. We're also going to be talking about SVI. You are watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us. Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
The city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us. Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us. Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
Are we back? we'll let them tell us out there. Yeah, we're good, Jake. Jake says we're good. Okay, so looks like we're back here. We moved around the studio. I guess we've moved around a few cables, and wires, and widgets, and some a few other things here. But anyways, but before we got choppy, I think the people still heard the audio, or maybe every few words that I was saying that when an elected official talks about specific dollars in this state, then there's all these legalities. It's illegal to say dollars for Black people or dollars for, let's say, Pacific Islanders. So they use this term BIPOC, but that's when it's connected to dollars. When there's so many other things to discuss where you can say the word Black. I want to go and eat at more Black restaurants. I want to read more Black books. I want to talk to more Black people, or I want to go talk to more Latinx people or whatever. But a lot of times politicians just hide underneath this umbrella of BIPOC, which, like I said, when it's connected directly to public dollars and taxpayer dollars, it's fine. This is whatever. That's how they maneuver. But that's not a free will for you to just be not specifying other things specifically for a community.
Yeah, and I think even when Lance Randall was on the Morning Update show and we talked to him about, what is it that he wants to do? He gave a great example of how, look, this is how we invest. We make sure that, Black businesses have the connections they need to elevate, their customer base, to elevate the fact that they have great products. Let's help create pathways for those products to enter into major chains like a Bartell's. And, he talked about that with a company that was making some candies. And he said, look, just by making those connections oftentimes is a way to do it. And I think that coming to the community and to Seattle city residents at large to say, look, this is what I plan to do. And, personally, if I'm mayor, these are the things that I plan to do to usher in some new agencies for Black businesses, for Black institutions, for Black organizations. Now, that right there is a way of doing it. But I think you're right, Omari. They have to be really specific when they're talking about what they're going to do and the investments that they really are going to make in terms of different communities. Because as you said, brother, and I think you're so right here, different communities need different things. It isn't always about money.
Yeah, BIPOC's a very wide umbrella, by the way. I think it probably does everybody a disservice who's considered in that umbrella just to be thrown in there. People's needs are different in different communities.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we got time for one or two more headlines here, and we'll come back and we're going to talk about SVI. But this is from Capitol Hill Seattle blog, Justin Carter. I think we're going to have Justin on here tomorrow. Reported racially motivated hate crimes nearly doubled last year in Seattle. And man, this is all bad. Seattle Police Department records show a 93% jump in reports of racially motivated hate crimes in 2020, with 405 incidents reported through September, the most recent month available for public reporting. Overall, reported hate crimes were up 72% in the city. Lots of hate crimes going on, man.
Wow. I mean, it's one of those things where, again, I think what we saw a lot of last year was just the polarization of our city. We've talked about that many, many times here. We've seen it play out. Just look at what, Mercer Island just did with their homeless population. I mean, we talk about the polarization of politics, but we're seeing it play out in the streets. And ultimately, that is one of the biggest concerns for many people, especially when we're thinking about, caring for our elders and things like that. Or, when they're out there trying to shop and, people want to do these kind of hate crimes, it's very unfortunate to hear these numbers, man. More than double, that is huge.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think we'll end this segment here with something pretty dope. It says, this is from GeekWire. NASA names Perseverance rover landing site on Mars after Seattle sci-fi pioneer Octavia E. Butler. Octavia E. Butler, Black woman, today, this is the other day, NASA announced that the red planet locale where the Perseverance rover touched down last month is called Octavia E. Butler landing in honor of a Black author who emphasized diversity in tales of alternate realities and far out futures. So Octavia E. Butler, who 15 years after her death, a Seattle-based African-American science fiction writer, the spot where Perseverance landed on Mars is named after her. I knew you would appreciate some Black girl magic.
I mean, there we go. Once again, you know, you have to be able to pay homage to these amazing folks who have done it. And you know what? Shouts out to Octavia E. Butler for all of her efforts in sci-fi writing. And I love that, again, there's a way to honor our people, you know, even after their death. Of course, it's great when they know it before they're gone, but ultimately, this is how we keep the names of so many legacy members that are Black, Indigenous, that are part of the global majority. For me, that's the exciting thing. And so I love that, you know, Black woman magic. Anytime, man, makes me want to sprinkle them fingers, man.
Yeah, yeah. You good over there, are you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if you're good, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Once you cue up break one, we're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, we're talking about Seattle Vocational Institute, also known as SVI. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city. I did it for the love. I did it for the people. I did it for us. Back on this rap-ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
The new says, wow.
I know. We're getting used to it.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I talk about change, man, I'm ready for all this change. We got to work on this. Huh?
We're going to get it right, you know, get it right for the people. We're being more news anchorish with, you know, both of us at the desk. It looks good.
Good. Speaking of good and good stuff, man, March 19th, people got to get ready for that. March 19th, we're celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the Morning Update Show. So exactly 1 year ago when we went on air. And so we got a whole special planned for everybody. March 19th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Got a lot of good stuff going on. Can you believe it's been a year?
I know. I was telling my parents this. We were just talking about it this weekend. And I was like, I'm so excited because who knew? You know, I remember originally we were like, this is going to be on for a few months. We didn't know how long COVID was going to be. And ultimately we just, you know, with building out the team, starting with those who were with us, you know, shout out to DQ and Hands, man. They were holding it down in the beginning. And it's just been a beautiful thing to watch how we've been just organically growing, man. You know, Converge is doing its thing.
A year. I really thought we were only going. The show was going to pop. It was a pop-up show. Remember, that's what we called it back in the day. It's our pop-up morning information show. We were just going to, like, 2 months later, we move on with life.
Right.
No.
Life had other plans in mind, my friend. That's what ended up happening, y'all.
My mama says that Buddha says, "What's in your way is your way." So I'm assuming that this is our way because it's definitely been in our way. All right. So keeping it real community here. The people from the CDC PDA. And actually, I like this middle camera. I'm going to stay right there. The people from the CDC PDA, Central District Community Preservation District Association, PDA, they reached out. So other people might know them in the CD as the McKinney Committee, the McKinney Commission. Mm-hmm. Man, the iconic late Reverend McKinney, Mount Zion. So basically, what happened is there's SVI, Seattle Vocational Institute, and I think that almost anybody, at least from community who you talk to, can agree on a bunch of things. And one of the things is that SVI, although it was at the time under Seattle Central colleges, and now I guess under Seattle colleges, it was definitely the stepchild of the institutions.
Yeah, really.
And I mean, SVI for decades, it was Seattle Vocational Institute. And what it did was give training to people in our community. You get all kinds of certificates there, anything from medical billing to the entry parts of becoming a contractor, learning construction trade, so many other things.
Cosmetology,
Everything was through there. And so this really was, when people talk about economic drivers, this was an economic driver in our neighborhood, because this is where people could go, get certified for jobs, and get into the workforce. And over the years, maintenance and everything else of the building continuously was deferred from the Seattle colleges here. And now it's at a point where they need $26 million to be able to bring the building back up to par, to be able to restore its past glory. And it's crazy, the story of how SVI was just kind of disregarded, so much like Black people altogether in the Central, disregarded, especially this building that had such a track record for producing Black business owners. There's so many Black business owners that we know that went through SVI.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too that, it was also a place that I think people really felt welcome. And maybe some of that is captured here, but I think that just my cousin alone, went from one institution to another, finally settled at SVI as a young mother, an adult who said, look, this is a place where I can go to further my education. I felt welcome. It felt like it was built for me. I was in classrooms of people who were just like me, similar lived experience. And oftentimes, institutions at the collegiate level, a lot of it is like, hey, kids right out of high school, this and this and that. SVI was known for having a wide open door, for bringing yourself in at any age range. And it just allowed for folks to feel more comfortable in those classroom structures. So, they really do have that history.
That's true. And that's some of the things. So I spent some time over there at SVI, and over the next few days, we have some different clips from some of the people we talked to. And it's interesting you say that, because one of the biggest things is that they talk about SVI meets you where you're at. And so you had people who were just out of high school. You had some young parents. You had some people who were re-entering society, maybe through the criminal justice system. You had some people who they're looking for another career. They were much older. But it really was representative of the community as a whole, because these are the people who make up the community. Before I jump into this first interview over here, a lot of people hear me talk about House Bill 1918, and we talk about some of the language that's in House Bill 1918. But House Bill 1918 was actually presented by this coalition, now the CDC PDA, to form this PDA to basically try to manage or take over this SVI property. But the important language as well in House Bill 1918, they passed both houses unanimously and signed by the governor, is it talked about the long history of systemic, basically, they didn't use the word racism in the bill, of course, but, it was systemic of what happened in the Central District, and the pushing out of businesses and the creation of policies that worked against the benefit of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's so much depth in House Bill 1918. I remember when it first really broke, we spoke about it then. And it's just important that, again, more and more folks in Seattle understand how deeply rooted these things are that those from the global majority experience all the time, particularly Black people, because of the anti-Blackness that has really been around often. And, they couldn't necessarily call it what we know it to be and how we experience it, but they did definitely put their finger on the triggers around, hey, this is what causes a lot of the ideology we were just talking about with the Amanda Gorman story. It's still alive and well in this city.
All right. So I talked to Amisha Lawton. Amisha's got an interesting story, because Amisha is like everything SVI. Like went to SVI, met her spouse's at SVI, kids with the SVI, people she working with the SVI, like everything SVI. But this was an important conversation because, you know, I asked, like, what's your journey been through SVI and what does it mean to you? What makes this community here, especially this community, Black community in the CD, special to you?
Well, you know, it was fun to know you can go 2 houses down and be at your friend's house. Their mothers knew your name. You can walk to the store with a note, you know. Everybody was just close. We can just hang out. It seemed safer then. It was a safety net area for me. I just miss, it was just family. I don't know how else to explain it. Everybody knew each other.
Why did you join the CDC PDA?
This building has changed my life. I had 2 kids graduate from SVI. I've had spouses graduate, it was 2 spouses to graduate from SVI. And I was able to give back what they gave me coming in here as a student to a lot of those in the community. When you came here, they were so open and they were just welcoming and everybody would help you. Like everybody knew your name in this building. Like you can go to any department and somebody's gonna mentor you. Somebody's gonna stop you in that hallway and say, hey, how's your day? Do you need help?
You know, in talking to some of your colleagues here and doing some research, just to bring this building, I guess, up to code, to modernize it, to make it usable, talking about $20+ million. Why is it worth the investment?
Look at me. It's worth the investment. Everybody came here as a cushion. It was a safe haven for everybody. I have somebody who works under me at the Urban League who has 3 to 4 certificates out of SVI right now. Everybody would come in here when they're down and out. They knew they can come here and change their life once again. You know, we might do well, we're gonna fall, but we can come back here and get right back on our feet. It doesn't matter where we're pushed out to with gentrification. We can be in Tacoma, Puyallup, Snohomish County. Once they know that we're back in this building, they're gonna come back. They're gonna come back.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, the whole interview with really all of these guys was probably about 20 minutes each. And it was real insightful to really learn how SVI has impacted so many different people in our community. And I think one of the things that, because I asked everybody, and we'll, you know, like I said, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, we got different segments. But I asked everybody, like, man, well, 26 million just to bring it up to, you know, to code, is it worth it? It was like, man, you understand, it's a lightning rod. People gonna come. They're gonna come back to SVI. Another thing they talked about, Trey, is a lot of wraparound services. We're gonna talk to a young woman tomorrow named Rashida, and Rashida said that she had 2 children at a young age, but because SVI, when it was operational, had a daycare there, she was able to take classes, you know, and have her kids right there in daycare.
You know, this is exactly why. To be honest with you, SVI is what brought me back into the community. Literally doing a design cipher with Africatown Community Land Trust, because they were like, look, how can we repurpose this space? And I think that, you know, taking up the mantle in terms of what the legacy SVI really brings is what we're talking about here. I mean, the ideas around not just the restoration of the building, but new programming, understanding that, again, there is a gap of programming for our young people with regard to production and music production and there's so many great things that this building can be. And I agree with the ideas around the investment that is needed to restore the building, because we don't want, you know, folks to be trying to enter it when it's in this condition right now. But ultimately, you can't even really occupy the building.
Yeah.
But the legacy, that building holds, again, can be renewed. And I like what Amisha said there in terms of, hey, when we build it, it doesn't matter where we've been pushed out to with regard to gentrification. People will, come back and understand, hey, this is still that space that was welcoming back then. It's still welcoming to this day to the folks in our community who oftentimes are pushed out of other educational systems. This is the place for it, man. And I love that she said that.
Yeah. And, I'll be honest with you, man, the SVI story, and especially we got a lot of viewers outside of our community, part of our larger viewing community, and we're happy to have you. But a lot of people, man, you might not know the SVI story, Seattle Vocational Institute, but I mean, it was just left to die basically by Seattle colleges, which is unfortunate. And I mean, even this 26 million they're talking about, this was like deferred maintenance.
Yeah.
This was like the college just to be like, yeah, we're gonna fix this in North Seattle, we're gonna fix this in South Seattle, we're gonna fix this in Central. SVI, we'll wait a year, we'll wait 2 years, and this deferred maintenance, man. It's the same thing that's happening with these bridges in some of the places in the city with all this deferred maintenance. But I mean, what's unfortunate is that, for sure, without a doubt, SVI was transformational in so many people's lives in our community. And it's been closed now for 2 years, is going 2 years now. And I was in there. We shot these segments in the lobby area down there. And yeah, it's a building that's in disrepair, but it's a building that I think means so much to our community that people are ready to fight for it.
Absolutely. And, I have a deep history with SVI as well. Not only was it one of the main projects that really brought me back into community, but also when I was out there doing my first documentary on gentrification, we held a lot of our interviews out of SVI. And again, it was another space where working with people in community, being a part of the MLK organizing coalition at the time, and we were having our meetings out of there. So this was a couple years ago. And honestly, again, it was a space where people could use it up until it was no longer able to do so. And it was open to the public in that regard. Like, hey, fill this out, talk to this person. Let's get you this space. Yes, we'll hold the space for you for some hours. That is what I experienced at the SVI. Not only my cousin graduating from there, which was a huge feat for my family because, again, she had already been through so many different things. And folks were like, man, what are you going to do with yourself? And then it was like SVI had its doors open. And so honestly, just such a rich legacy. I'm excited to hear more about these interviews, man, that you guys are able to do because it's important that folks understand from a community perspective how important this building is to so many of us.
This is true. And tomorrow we have Rashida Davis. So Rashida, she's going to tell her story tomorrow. She had a young mother, 2 children at 18, and was able to go to school over there at SVI. SVI had a daycare in there and wraparound services inside of the building. So we're going to hear from Rashida. And then on Wednesday, it's John Collins III, and Thursday, Gerald Bradford talking this SVI story. We're going to take a quick break right now. Let's go to break 2, Alia. When we come back, people talk, there's a lot of debates going on right now. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not talking about, in Congress, COVID-19 package, they're going to change this and that. I'm talking about the movie Coming to America. We're going to talk about that when we come back. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us. Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today. via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. I'm still getting used to this.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I'm liking it. That's why I've been thanking, our Converge team, man. Director Aya D'Alessandro. You guys can, there we go. Get it.
There's the wave.
I'm liking it, man.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Wow. Looks
good.
Oh yeah,
there we go.
There's Jake Grabber, and actually Jake's joining us tomorrow. This is a funner setup. I'll say this though. Jake's joining us tomorrow. Jake's been on the road, which is it's actually going to be a good switch up for Jake Grabber because for months every time we brought Jake on, it was like, man, it's protest photos. You know what I'm saying? And it's easy even to kind of pigeonhole a bit. They're like, hey, it's a protest photo guy. And some of these photos that he has from the protests are like, it's crazy. But he's been out going to like national parks and all kinds of stuff. It turns out this guy is a big time nature photographer.
Yeah, doing some amazing, great work. And if you guys haven't been able to check him out, it is walk.into.the.light.
Jeez.
On IG. I got it in. But doing some amazing work, honestly. And I watched Jake's stuff. One of my favorite photographers for sure, hands down in the city.
Taking all your photos. Look
He's
at
dope.
You guys are gonna have to wait till after for all this, man.
Whatever.
All right, so big debate across the country. We waited 30 years and the movie came out, Coming to America. And, there's some people who were like, oh, it was cool. There's a lot of people. I felt a lot of hate, man. You know what I'm saying? I like the movie, but I'm just curious, Trey Holiday. What were your thoughts? But two, also within your circle, what were people saying?
You know what? Honestly, I think I was around a lot of positive energy, right? So I watched it first by myself. And Johnny didn't want to watch it with me, my 7-year-old. He wasn't trying to do it. But I watched it by myself and I was able to kind of dissect it, take it in a little bit. And then, I was able to watch it with some friends. And ultimately, we all agreed that it was a great production, a great movie. I loved the shout outs that they did to the original, right? There was a couple of things in there. I even loved how one of the conversations talks about how sequels are really not a good thing and you should leave it alone if it was good on the first run. But ultimately, I think that it was a great production. I just love seeing all that blackness. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
So, for me, and also shout out to Fatima, man, did her thing on that choreography. Once again, to me, I just thought it was dope. I'm maybe more jokes or maybe I don't even know what the naysayers were upset about, but ultimately, I loved the movie.
Yeah. It was great. One or two things here. One, I thought that was a monitor, but it turns out like I'm live. I was just in my head. I saw a few things in for me, right? Is I enjoyed the movie, and I think that people don't realize that a lot of the stuff we saw 30 years ago was groundbreaking on screen, and so we've seen it once before. But seeing all that for the first time was like, wow, it was amazing. Like the mix between the comedy and the storyline. And man, here are a prince from coming all the way from the land of Zamunda into Queens. And, they got hella wealth, it's the Waldorf, it's this and that. And so like that was groundbreaking in itself then, so many of the things. Even the Royal Bathers. Yeah. You bring them back 30 years later, but we saw them the first time. It was like, what? Royal Bathers, this is cracking. So, man, but I like the movie. And I really, like I said, I really like the blackness. I like the positivity of it. It did leave me hanging the first time to be like, which direction is this gonna go with Wesley Snipes? With General Ize, you know what I'm saying? But they kind of kept it as a funny kind of family movie. My only thing is, if they were going to come back to America, I wish they would have either came back to like a longer story plot in America, or I think they probably could have just showed how cracking it was in Africa.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it was like they were in Queens, then bounced, then they were in Queens, and then bounced. You know what I'm saying? But man, I think people going way too hard. They go way too hard on these guys, man.
I just gotta say, I'm glad I didn't necessarily read so many of the reviews. Folks that I was watching it with were saying the same thing. They're like, man, they're going hard on these guys on the reviews. Ultimately, I just want to send a shout out to the entire production team. You know, one of the things that I love, someone said, and I don't have the numbers off the top, but you tell me another movie that's going to employ that many thousands of Black people and that's going to do this, and that as a sequel. You name it and you can't do it. And ultimately, that's another way of making sure that our young people that are in film are getting their breaks, man. I mean, we saw a lot of new faces on the screen, and I think that they all did a really great job with the acting. For me, I was excited by it, man. And, you know, I just shout out to Leslie Jones, man, keeping the funnies going. And, you know, clearly Tracy Morgan. I mean, honestly, I just thought that they did a good job, you know?
You know what, too? It's good to see Black people on the big screen where it's not the criminal, the hoe, the pimp, the drug user, or the redemption story of like, man, you know, it was me and 7 brothers who grew up in a room splitting one bologna sandwich, and now we've made it, you know, because Hollywood likes to have them stories of Black people who've overcome the worst of whatever, you know what I'm saying? This was good to see a story, you know, fictional story, but still a story that was upbeat, positive, man, it showed brilliance and wealth and intelligence and some of everything else. And that's really not a lot of what we get out of Hollywood, to be honest with you. We get these roles where, man, it's usually because, I'll be honest with you, and I guess we got 1-2 minutes here. I'll be honest with you. I had this conversation with my mom, and I said that Hollywood, and thus the people who consume Hollywood, that's the majority of white America, just based on the numbers, I mean, man, they really consume and love the story of the Black person who had to overcome all of these kind of things. Now, that's a real story, and that's true. But, man, where is the space for the Black person who didn't and still thrived? Man, both their parents were at home. They were a straight A student, never had an issue with the police, never had a whatever, and they're thriving. Where's their story? Where's their space?
Yeah, I love that you say that. And I think that, too, it brings me to a point in the movie where the young prince, when he was in Queens, had to start, you know, talking about some of this stuff with the guy he was trying to get a job with. You know what I mean? And I mean, I love that scene because he's like, wait a minute, you know, so your parents never did this or that to give you a shot. They never gave you a thing in a company. They never paid for your, you know, recovery. He's like, it wasn't that. It was Oxy. And my dad didn't drop me off. It was my mom. And I mean, I'm like, that is kind of what we deal with in America oftentimes. I mean, we talked about this last week also with regard to some of these looser regulations around drugs right now. I mean, we just talked about it. Then they showed that in the movie. I was like, man, right on, man. Put that out there for the masses to see.
It's real deal. All right, look, we're I think 2 minutes over. We're gonna get ready to get out of here. Tomorrow we have Jake Gravbrot joining us. I think we got a few other things going on. Tonight at 6:15, the coronavirus update show. It's lots of movement around the virus, the vaccine, and some everything else. So that's producer Nikki Barron at 6:15 tonight for the coronavirus update show. Until tomorrow at 11 a.m. Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the rising sun of a new day.